Aspire Media has had the opportunity to interview many amazing individuals in Austin, Texas. And today we have the privilege to interview Miss Lacey Roop, one of Austin's top spoken word poets. So thank you again today for being with us, Lacey. It's really honestly a privilege to be here in your house, and yeah, I'm really excited to get to know you today.
Absolutely.
So what did you do today? What have you done today so far?
Woke up.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Yeah, make coffee, take a shower. Not too much.
Cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like me.
Yeah.
So you're really well known for the amazing words that you put together and perform in front of large audiences. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about what Poetry Slam is and maybe some of the competitions that you've been in?
Yeah, so Poetry Slam is a fairly new art form. It was, I guess, invented by a guy named Mark Smith out of Chicago, or he's the one that's coined the Poetry Slam phrase. And I guess that was probably over 20 years ago when Poetry Slam came into fruition. It started as kind of like a bar game, I guess. Like before Poetry Slam, you just had typical open mics. Mm-hmm. And what you have at open mics is that the audience isn't as engaged, and so Mark Smith wanted to have an inventive way to make poetry a little bit more entertaining and accessible to like the average crowd. Mm-hmm. So he came up with a scoring system. So you have a panel of judges. Judges can be anybody in the bar. There's no certain criteria to be a judge. So you pick judges randomly, and then you give them a scorecard, and then they rank the poets by 10 being the best poem they ever heard, okay, and then 1 or 0 or negative, whatever number being like worst poem they've ever heard. Yeah. So it's like a fun interactive game that we play. And that's kind of like the beginning of Poetry Slam. It was just this inventive, creative way of scoring poems to get the audience a little more engaged with the poet.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when do you recall learning about poetry slams, or when did you start writing your first poems?
It wasn't until I moved to Austin. I grew up in Mississippi, and I didn't really use poetry as a creative outlet. My outlet at the time was athletics, particularly basketball. Okay. So when I came to and when I came to Austin, I was studying at a coffee shop. Mm-hmm. Called the Hideout. It's on Congress. Okay. And they were clearing the stage because they were going to have an open mic. Mm-hmm. So I sat around and I listened to some poetry and some singers or whatnot. And there was nothing really particularly. There wasn't anything particularly inspiring at the time. It wasn't like, oh, it was like amazing work that I heard. But it was the act with it itself, the people sharing what they had written, that was inspiring. Yeah. And so I decided, I was like, well, maybe I'll write a poem. And so I did, and I didn't share it immediately. I just was, started to go a little more like open mics just to listen. And then when I finally read a poem, someone told me about the Poetry Slam. Mm-hmm. And I thought they were crazy. I didn't know what that was exactly. And so several months after that, when I finally went to the Poetry Slam, and I just did the same thing all over again. I just went and listened, and then finally decided to read a poem, and then I was hooked. Nice. Yeah.
So how old were you at that time?
What did you say? I think I was 21.
21?
Yeah. I
so
think
you
21
didn't...
the first time I did a poem.
Okay. So for some reason in my mind, I thought you were young, and you know that typical story where it's just like, I tried this when I was little and I loved it, and you've just been working since. So this is fairly a new talent for you. You just kind of came about it.
Yeah, I guess I've been active in the Poetry Slam community for 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
I took a break from it when I went traveling through South America, and I was gone in South America for 10 months. Okay. And then when I came back, then I started doing the Poetry Slam again.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. So some questions for you. I want to hear a little bit about your first poem. Do you recall like what it was about at all?
Yeah, what I consider really my first poem is my poem called Shark Boy.
Shark Boy.
Yeah, and I guess it's about I guess Shark Boy questions what it is to grow up. And it's the perspective of an adult looking at a child and remembering what it was like to be that child, and also figuring out through the conversation with this child about how they have lost something childlike in them, and they don't know where it went or why it happened, and they hope that it doesn't happen to this child, but there's an inevitability that with age. And so it's a magical poem. It does a lot of like metaphor and magical realism within it, but it's the theme within the poem, within the story is I guess a little somber.
Yeah. Awesome.
But
was that the first poem you performed?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it was the first poem I performed.
Well, going into the competitions that you've competed in, because you've competed in a lot and you've represented Austin at such a high level, how has that been for you? How has that been for you?
It's an honor to get to represent Austin. Austin's a great scene. It's a wonderful community. I'm inspired by a lot of artists that are here. I have traveled a lot, and I've seen a lot of work. I've seen a lot of poets and a lot of performances, and Austin is one of the strongest scenes, hands down. Denver has a great scene. Obviously, New York has a great scene because it's New York City.
Yeah.
They have great everything, you know?
Yeah.
But Austin has a really great community, great scene. Some of the most creative, inventive, talented, dedicated writers, hands down. So whenever I am selected to go represent Austin, it's a great honor, and I'm shocked every time. I'm completely shocked every time they want me to go represent this city.
So being so confident on stage, it's hard for me to be like, how are you so shocked? Of course you're talented. How do you appear so confident on stage?
I don't know why I appear so confident on the stage. I'm really nervous every time I read. It's quite...
Because I wanted to ask that too. How do you get nervous?
Yeah, terribly nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's partly why I still do it, because if I didn't have the nerves, or if I didn't get nervous, then I still wasn't feeling the poems, you know?
So you're kind of like Beyonce.
Wow, man, you can say that too, actually.
So you have a before show Lacey, and then once you're on stage, you just boom and you turn it on. Yeah,
I guess so. I believe in my work. I'm not gonna go up on stage and read a poem that I don't believe in.
Yeah.
And I think that might be where some of that confidence comes in. I'm not really confident in myself as like an individual, but I believe in the work. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to read anything that I don't believe in. And I like sharing the work. It's important to me to be able to offer my voice.
So earlier you kind of mentioned how some people are moved by the words that you present on stage. And I remember seeing you, I was really moved myself. How do you feel about people saying that you're an inspiration to them?
That's great. I don't feel any indifference about that at all. I think that's a really great compliment, and it means a lot to me when people are inspired by my work, because I'm inspired by other people's work.
Yeah. Do you recall any stories where maybe students or people who have seen you perform, they've come up to you and tell you how you've maybe changed their life? Any unique stories about that? Yeah,
I've got several stories, and people email me all the time too, which is really nice. I've talked to a lot of people where like my work has influenced them or inspired them or has changed their opinion or has changed someone else's opinion about something. Especially my work that deals with gender and sexuality. I know there's Gender as a Universe is a poem that I know that people have communicated to me that's helped certain individuals, which is really, I mean, it's an honor, you know?
Yeah.
How you can write something in the quietness of your own home, and then how it can spread.
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Is it always, I feel like when you're writing these poems, because it's like a Facebook status, you know, sometimes you just want to type something, and then you're just like, no, I'm going to delete it because maybe someone won't like that, or it's going to be misinterpreted a certain way. So is there ever a time when you're writing these poems or your writings and you're like, maybe I shouldn't say that because I'm going to perform this? Or is it more like, I don't care what I'm going to write, these are my thoughts? And
well, I'm never, like I said, I'm never going to read something that I don't believe in.
mm-hmm.
And there is some editing process that goes along with writing. You know, like writing and editing, they're two different things, but they're a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to perform anything that I don't believe in. There isn't any. Well, I guess with that being said, there isn't any there aren't any poems that I've written that I'm like, oh, like that was offensive.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah.
No.
You're not like trying to shape anything based on what you think other people are going to think.
I'm offering a story, and if that story influences you or changes your mind or makes you see something different, then that's great.
Mm.
But I'm not trying to force my opinion on anyone.
Yes.
You know?
So, like many entertainers or artists, performers, everyone gets inspired by something or someone else. Do you have any things or any specific people that maybe inspire you to write poetry?
Yeah. Every day is a reason to be inspired to write poetry. Mm-hmm. There's so many things. There are particular writers and poets that I'm inspired by. I'm inspired by the sun, by the day. There's so many reasons. There's infinite reasons to be inspired.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's recognizing those moments whenever you're in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe it. I can definitely see all three of those things in your videos when you perform, and just knowing you as a person right now, you just come off very kind. You have a very welcoming presence, and some people appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I'm like a pineapple, right? The reason why is like pineapples are really tough, right? On the outside, they got this crazy hair, like spike. You could hurt someone with a pineapple, right? Like a really good pineapple has those spikes at the end.
Yeah.
And they have a really solid core, you know? Like the core is like solid.
Yeah.
But when you cut into a pineapple, it's like the juiciest fruit there is.
It's really sweet.
It's really sweet. Like it's not as tough, you know?
Yeah.
And it's you can do a lot of, you can, like, there's a pineapple can be anywhere and everywhere, right? Like it's a pretty adventurous fruit, right? You can grill it, you can saute it, you can put it
on pizza.
On a pizza, smoothie, it's everywhere, you know?
True.
But it's a scary fruit on the outside.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. I feel like I have this toughness. I want people to know it's this tough exterior.
Yeah.
But I'm actually quite kind.
Yeah.
Like a pineapple.
So that in any future interviews, I'm like, what kind of fruit are you? Because I mean, I feel like that describes you pretty well.
It's a real thing. There's another thing you can do. You can ask people. There are three animals. Like three animals, and just first come to mind. You can't really think about them. And so my three animals would be a lion, a dolphin, and an elephant.
Okay.
And what that means is that the first animal that you say is how people perceive you. It's like your exterior. And then your second animal is how you perceive yourself. And then the third animal is who you aspire to be. So I look like a lion. People perceive me as a lion. My rising sign is a Leo, which is a lion.
Yeah.
A dolphin would be like what I actually am. They're pretty communicative animals. They're friendly, travel in groups.
Yeah,
you know?
they do flips in the air.
Yeah, yeah. And an elephant is this wise mammoth, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I aspire to be.
Nice.
So, I aspire to be an elephant. In my current state, I'm a lion / dolphin.
So that's really funny though, because after the interviews I ask, what do you aspire to be?
An elephant.
And you aspire to be an elephant. But there's a description behind it all, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Well, that pretty much concludes the interview. So, thank you for being with us here today, Lacey. Your story is pretty cool. Like, watching you grow from when I met you in college to like where you are now. It's just awesome to see the amounts of people you're reaching right now with your words. So, thank you for allowing us to come into your home, and that's a wrap.
Thank you.